iambic pentameter. That seems sort of timely in a way. Right? Iambic pentameter is like a heartbeat. There is one soft beat and one strong beat, and it's repeated 5 times, penta. Right? We sort of get this dee-dum, 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 like a heartbeat. And again, this is going to become important when we turn to Sanskrit poetry, because there's this alternation of light and heavy syllables. The light ones here are in blue. The D, I should have made this blue and red too, and then these capital ones are the dumb are red ones. So if we were to say this from Midsummer's Night's Dream, the course of true love never did run smooth. Right? Similarly, Demetrius in Midsummer's Night's Dream, oh, why rebuke you him that loves you so? Lay breath so bitter on your bitter foe. And they all follow this, and this is the rhythm of the heart. Dee-dum, 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 dee-dum. So just kind of bear in mind that this is something that maybe, if you've read Shakespeare, we're more familiar with than we might think. But this idea that there are light syllables and heavy syllables will become important as we turn to verses. So just to talk about verses, and here we are talking about classical Sanskrit meter, not Vedic meter. Every verse, as I said, has these 4 padas, which means feet or quarters. And the kind of poetry we're talking about here is vritta. So this is a stanza which is regulated by the number and positions of syllables in each pada. And here in particular, we are talking about samavritta, where all padas are similar, right? Here they all have 8 syllables. There are these other kinds, but you know that they exist. They don't have to all be the same, but here they are the same. And I'm just going to give a very basic intro to the Sanskrit alphabet to perhaps intrigue those who have not yet studied Sanskrit. But the main thing I want to draw your attention to, these are the vowels, is these letters with a line over them. So we have here up, which is a short sound, ah, which is a long sound, e, which is a short sound, e, which is a long sound, oo, which is a short sound, oo, which is a long sound, are, which is a short sound, ari, which is a long sound, lida, which is a short sound, and then we have all these long sounds, a, I, o, ow. And again, this is going to become very important because the long vowels make a heavy syllable, and the short vowels will make a light syllable. And so I just want to point out that this happens before we even get to poetry in some words you might know. So you might know the names of the angas, the limbs of Ashtanga yoga. And you'll notice as I read through them that these long vowels get the emphasis, right? Ashtanga yoga, right? Ah, gets the emphasis. O in yoga. Yama, those are both short. So those are equal. Niyama, those are all short. So they all kind of get equal emphasis. But then we get to one of my favorite mispronounced words, which people often say asana. It is not asana, it is asana, because we have this long syllable here. Similarly, here we have pranayama, all long, so they get emphasis. The next one, right, asana. So yama, restraint, for those who don't know, niyama, observances, asana, posture. This is what we tend to be most familiar with. Pranayama, breath control. Pratyahara, again, notice the emphasis on the long ahs, sensory withdrawal. Dharana, concentration. Dhyana, again, emphasis on the long ah, meditation, and samadhi, absorption. So this happens even when we're not talking about poetry, that the long syllables get the emphasis. But when we get to poetry, it starts to get a little complicated. So we just need to know one more thing, and then we will turn to some verses. We need to know what a syllable is. So a syllable in Sanskrit is called akshara, which means it's perishable. And there are some certain rules about how you make a syllable. A syllable can have only one and only one vowel. That's a syllable. It also must start with a consonant unless it's at the beginning of the line or after some Sunday rules of word joining, which we will not go into. There's this other rule, and this is probably one of the hardest ones, is that you want to make the syllable as long as possible. I will show you what this means when we get there. And then we have two kinds of syllables, light, lagu, which has to end in a short vowel, no matter what. Guru, you probably know the word guru, it means heavy. And here it just means a syllable, all the other syllables. All the other syllables. So it can either end in a long vowel, or it can end in a consonant and it will be heavy. So all we need to know is all syllables fall into one of these two categories. These are our rules. So we then get some more rules. Those are rules for what a syllable is. But we now have rules for what shloka meter is, right? As I said, we heard Valmiki say his shloka became shloka, but what is shloka? This is shloka, right? So it's these verses. There are these 4 padas, these 4 quarters. Each one has 8 syllables, but there are a couple other rules. So the 6th syllable has to be heavy. The 5th syllable has to be light, and the 7th alternates. So the 7th is short in the 2nd, and 4th pada, and long in the others. Yes, this is very complicated. I have tried to map it out here so that we can see what's happening. The crazy thing about this is that all of these verses follow this pattern. So I'll just show you a couple after we get here, but pretty much the entire Ramayana, the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, except for some other verses which are in some other meters that follow some other rules. But any of the verses in shloka meter, they follow these rules, all of them. And as my students will share, this is not so easy. And so it's quite remarkable that they came up with all these verses in this way. So we take this verse that we have here, right? This is the verse that says what I just said. We only care about 5th, 6th, and 7th. And so this little semicircle thing, which I've made blue, this is light. And then the line thingy, this is long, right? And so if we look at this, shloke shashtam gu, gu is short because gu is short. Ruj, long because it ends in a consonant. Nye, long because it ends in a consonant. Those are the only ones we care about, yeah, right? So we've got short in the 5th. Notice these are the 5th, they are all short. This little guy is short. We've got long here. Again, this one's long, and then we've got alternatingly long and short. And if you look at the breakdown, right, the short ones, they have to end in a short consonant. Ooh, da, ga, yeah. The other ones, they all either end in a long consonant, yay, or they end in a long vowel or a consonant. Again, we're not going to go through all of this, but I just want to show you that as people come up and start to present their poems, these are easy, as they both tell you. So just to look again at our Ganesha mantra that we started off with, it follows the same pattern. We look at 5, 6, and 7. Vakratunda ma short mahakaya. Surya koti sa short maharaba. Nirvignam kuru me deva. Sarvakaryeshu sarvada. So again, we've got these alternatingly short and long syllables all the way through. Any verse that you can pick pretty much will follow this. So I just picked one from the ones we were looking at before. Right, this one of the students, I think I chanted this one for us, right? It follows the same pattern. Short, long, long, short, long, short, short, long, long, short, long, short. So again, just to show you that if you break them down, they all follow. I picked a random verse from the Bhagavad Gita. Maybe we'll chant this together just so you can kind of start to hear how it goes. But just you can pick a random verse, and as you will see, it will follow. So let's chant it just so we can hear it, and then I will share a couple of mine, and I will turn it over to Dial so she can go to bed. All right. So again, call and response. Yonta su kuntaramas. Yonta su kuntaramas. Tantar jyotir evaya. Tantar jyotir evaya. Sayugi Brahma Nirvanam. Sayugi Brahma Nirvanam. Brahma Bhuto Digathyati. Brahma Bhuto Digathyati. And we have the same cadence in all of these verses. So again, I'm just going to share a couple that I wrote, and then I will turn it to y'all in a moment. This one that I showed you at the beginning, right? The one we sent around on the flyer. Same thing. Here I've got the short ones in yellow and the long ones in red. But we have the same thing happening. So let's try and chant this one. See if my impermanence can be made permanent by the moment. Kala prastuta sadhava. Kala prastuta sadhava. Atitam antarehina. Sapnam anagatam atam. Sapnam anagatam atam. Artamanam sadabhaja. Artamanam sadabhaja. And as you know, many of us have learned trying to write these. It's very tricky to find short syllables. So sometimes you throw in little words like "e," which just means indeed. There are lots of words which are sort of filler when you're reading Sanskrit verses, like I don't know all these extra words, and then you try to write one, and you realize, oh, they were just trying to fill the meter. And sometimes you're like, why were words in that order? That's really weird. Like, oh, they were just trying to fit the meter. And so this is often true, and you don't really get that until you try to write poems. So I have a couple more, but I will save my poems on collective karma and discernment for the end. So make sure you stay till the end. They might be relevant. But I'm gonna let y'all just get your poems.
Oh, hello. Is this okay, Zoe?
You're amazing.
You want me to do call and response, right?
Yes, but first, tell us something about the inspiration of your process.
Of course. I mean, it's a process. I was very glad when we got this assignment. I mean, I was at the Poetry Slam last year, attending and listening like you do tonight. And I could have never dreamed of writing my own verses at this point. So Zoe enabled us all to do so. And I was very glad not to have to tell a specific story but to have some freedom, because this was all, just, happening just because the syllables fit. And I tried to make sense of it. And I wrote about Ida and Pingala, the solar and the lunar channel, and their meaning for yoga. Right. And I have 3 verses. So I would start with the first one. And I'll try to chant as well as Zoe. Whew, big shoes to fill. Chandrama sundaro vidhi. Chandrama sundaro vidhi. Shubhayat yeva sharvarim. Shubhayat yeva sharvarim. Cha ravi sundaro vidhi. Cha ravi sundaro vidhi. Tejasadipyate dinam. Tejasadipyate dinam. Vignan andakare marge. Vignan andakare marge. Nu suchayati chandrika. Nu suchayati chandrika. Hrittaye kardaman sarvan. Hrittaye kardaman sarvan. Nu suchayati suryaruch. Nu suchayati suryaruch. Ubhayor vidyate deeptim. Ubhayor vidyate deeptim. Purushasya vidit vavai. Purushasya vidit vavai. Cha prakritya gunan sarvan. Cha prakritya gunan sarvan. Varayogam hi vitti sa. Varayogam hi vitti sa. Yes, thank you for chanting this with me. And it's all about understanding both the radiance of the sun and the moon, the male and the female, to know true yoga and a full life.
We'll let you go to bed. Thank you for staying up. In the time
No problem. It's 2:30 in the morning. I will happily go to bed now. Thank you and have a great rest of the Poetry Slam. Bye.
All right, Allison. Poems. The first one is called Answering in the Ocean. Where I go. For good or bad answers, I like to go down to the beach, so for what inspired it. I don't like to perform, so it's gonna help me chant a little bit, just to right tune. Sagare Shanti Shantam Sagare Should I read and translate? I think you should, because the bottom says that, yeah, I love it. Find peace in the ocean, the waves are common, you can see forever, thoughts and deeds are like fish.
Very David Lynch. Very good.
But the English is good too, sometimes it's like, yeah, the English doesn't work as well as
He
it
did.
did.
Very simple. It was created by the
Okay. All right, the next one, I got an email about 10 days ago saying that this was published in Yoga Journey. And so was Zoe. We, I guess a few people submitted them. I got a little giggle out of the fact that mine made it. And because it's super simple, but if you know anything about writing Sanskrit, it's not. It's not. You know, you read my poem and you go, oh, that's really cute. But really, I asked Zoe how many emails back and forth. We have had many versions. So, but anyways, I'm proud of it, and it's just fun to have that on my resume. Okay, here we go. Yoga marga prashantasya. Yoga marga prashantasya. Yoga sukham karoti. Yoga sukham karoti. Vipayet manasam yogam. Vipayet manasam yogam. Sarvecha samadashina. Sarvecha samadashina.
Yeah.
What do you need to do?
All right. And we're going to just take a little turn here. To Maureen Shannon Chapel, who's going to read us a poem that is not in Sanskrit, but certainly pertains to what has been going on here in Los Angeles, and definitely on point. Oh, you know, yeah. The speakers on in this room?
Yeah.
Maybe, or maybe just move up a little bit. People on there. One like that, yeah. Well, that was Peter, I'm looking like my
The webcam is here, so maybe being closer to the webcam might help.
Testing, can you hear us closer when we're standing closer?
Is this better?
Cam?
Yeah, so maybe we
Okay.
can all scoot, have phone person to be here.
Or here.
Over the other side.
Yeah, let's stand over here. And we'll bring the podium around.
Pivot.
Oh, super dramatic effect.
Or you needed a new set.
Yeah.
So, right, very simple, yeah.
Well, the correct one is
Okay. Fabulous. Is this better for everyone standing right here? Yeah, okay, perfect. Yes, yeah. Perfect.
Hi, everybody. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I didn't insert myself here, but Zoe invited me, so I did. What I did isn't nearly as hard as what you all are doing. I mean, it's amazing, just amazing. It doesn't follow rules. Yeah, I was thinking as we were opening today and thinking about what I was going to share, which I wrote 3 days into the fires, that I've been singing this song on repeat. There's something about meter, right? And it's called Mercy Now, but the last line is every single one of us could use some mercy now. So that's on my heart. Inheritance. But I haven't been writing. This small voice chirps up in regular intervals like a fire alarm with failing batteries as the deadline of the writing workshop closes in. In truth, I've been a contributing writer to a small novel these last 3 days in the multiple streams of email and text threads as we type out our care and concern. A novel with a heavy dose of tragedy, dystopian in scope, utterly real in impact. Paragraphs relaying devastation, the newly homeless refugees from the fire sharing their stunning losses. Some in a matter-of-fact state of shock, some with astonishing clarity and composure, perhaps reflecting a shock response that moved through quickly, or one on hold, as doing the needful demands full attention. And everywhere, messages of love, offers of refuge, material help, emotional accompaniment. We humans know what to do when the elements rattle the world. We know how to respond to wildfires and floods, catastrophic storms, and the violent shaking of the earth. We know how to care. Love is built into the structure of our DNA. This longing to connect is an inheritance we sometimes neglect to claim. In our pride and self-importance, we turn away from the most precious gift of our ancestors, that capacity to align with the onward flow of life-affirming energy, present since the brilliant explosion of the Big Bang. It's in our cells, in the body that always inclines to close the cut, rush blood to the site of impact, mend the bone. Our psyche is wired to connect, to heal, to grow. I recognized in some of my co-authors to this story some long ago grudges melted, the heat of the flames purifying the heart as their unguarded voices call out, "Are you safe?" No longer resisting the deeply felt impulse underneath our defenses that asks, "How can I help?" The story included a photo of a home, the vibrancy of someone's material life reduced to gray rubble and blackened wood. Yet something remained. Out of the ashes rose a serene and upright stone Buddha, quietly sitting among the withered remains and twisted metal. An outer emblem of that inner stillness which cannot be burned, consumed, or destroyed. This too is our birthright. And I have to leave shortly because I'm teaching, so I'm not skipping out because I don't want to hear it.
I'm glad we got to that. That was really beautiful. Thank you. And I think, for me, the best thing to do in these times is to tap into creativity. Sometimes it feels like right now it's all we can do. And so writing poetry in whatever form that takes, I think is really powerful.
Need everyone to speak up.
Wait,
You just need everyone to speak up when you project.
yes,
Project
project.
your voice when you get up there, so we
Okay.
can hear you and everybody in the
And then they can hear.
virtual room before.
Excellent.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Sub me.
So, Alana, do you want to come up now? We've got a whole different array of poems that we will explain.
Thank you. Hey everyone. I'm Alana and thank God for Zoe because this took me, this was the hardest project I've probably ever done. And if you know me, you know, I actually I wrote a poem about how much I hated writing poetry. But that doesn't translate well to Sanskrit. Especially with the meter. So then I found inspiration from Frida Kahlo. So this poem's been taken now from Spanish to English to Sanskrit. And one of the most the reason this poem really stuck for me is because we're the first generation of women really that have been able to live alone and provide for ourselves and be fully independent. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. So I need to breathe, I need to chill out. But Frida's words are, you lucky, lucky girl, you have an apartment just your size, a bathtub full of tea, a heart the size of Arizona, but not so arid, which was also, my whole family lives in Arizona, so I guess. And then in Sanskrit, it translates to, oh, lucky, lucky girl, she enjoys a home just her size, a bathtub filled with chai, and a big heart indeed. Yeah. So let's chant it. Bhadra Nari Mahabhagye. Bhadra Nari Mahabhagye. Matsambu Napti Tat Pulam. Matsambu Napti Tat Pulam. Snanadroni Sachayahi. Snanadroni Sachayahi. Dara Devana Jangala. Dara Devana Jangala. Oh, actually, there we go. And then, actually, this is I think I got them backwards. This is the first half of the poem.
Yeah, sorry.
So that was me. I think I labeled them wrong. So leaving is not enough. You must stay gone. Train your heart like a dog. Change the locks even on the house he's never visited. And then in Sanskrit, it's renunciation is not sufficient. You should remain gone, far away. You should teach yourself like a dog. Protect your heart in we have a hut in Sanskrit, not a house. Which mine feels more like a hut than a house sometimes. So this is a beautiful hut. Okay. Aparyapta parityagas. Aparyapta parityagas. Tishta duram gatasi. Tishta duram gatasi. Sayam pataya hishvavad. Sayam pataya hishvavad. Arakshaiva mate darad. Arakshaiva mate darad. Thank you.
So, drawing inspiration from all kinds of places. All right, so I think we're gonna bring up Bryce to well, I will let him tell you what he's going to do. I don't even have words. It's a white hole.
It's a banger.
It's gonna be all you. I thought you should get to go before.
Thanks so much. All right, okay. I wrote this poem maybe 5 years ago and
In English.
In English. And so we had the opportunity in our Sanskrit class under Zoe's tutelage to translate some verses into Sanskrit. I translated the first 3 verses into Sanskrit, and maybe I'll do the others someday. But we'll go through the 3 verses, we'll sing them, and then talk a little bit about what they say, and then I'll read you the poem in English. So the poem is Shvetadrika, white hole. So I'll call in response. Shvetadrikam svakendram hi. Krishnam sammanasam mukham. Shunyata yudyati stulam. Indu bhau yomakalayo. All right. Shvetadrikam, a white hole, Parmadarya compound. That is the same as one's own center, Svakendram, indeed.
You'll notice the use of the word he a lot. Filler.
However, this white hole is alike somehow. It is samana and also samukam together, opposite and kind of facing against a black hole. And how do these things compare and contrast is the subject of this poem. They're in opposition. They fight. They battle each other in some way. Yudyati, shunyata, empty, void, nothing. A white hole, kind of nothing, versus stulam. The black hole is massive and large. But yet both of those ubao are points or spots, technically just points in space-time. Yoma kala yoho, in space-time. Maybe a word that didn't exist in the mainstay of Sanskrit language, but we can put it together into this compound. Okay. Verse 2. Shobaya yahirchu yacha. Hari tat parivartacha. Yoma vartmana bahu. Varta nakshatra dulijao. Story continues. Some instruction is given, saying, go, yeah, go with grace in a straight line. I love that Sanskrit has a word for in a straight line or upright, rijuya. And rotate, parivarta, rotate around it. Around what? Around the white hole, one's center. Also, the arms, bahu, can imagine them kind of flowing through the air and space as one practices yoga. Turning and rotating those arms around like a dancer. Those arms in the dual, just like the arms, are born of the dust of stars, nakshatra dulijao, arms of stardust. Loko yadyapi kaivalyam. Shariram anubandakam. Vridadravyani kurvanti. Atams te shudrike samaha. So even though this place, this white hole, is abstract, it's kind of alone, not material, it is connected to anubandhakam shariram, the body. How is this connected to the body? Well, it turns out that in physics, there is a property, a physical property that says that rigid bodies, rigid bodies, they do something, something happens. They make Purvanti forces when applied to them externally on that body. They make the same force equivalent to as if you had just exercised those forces on the person's center. And so it relates the whole to the center. Okay, so now I'll just read the poem in English and you can see if you catch any of the concepts in English. So some art that I've added to it. One center is a white hole, equal and opposite black. Both points in space-time, massive versus no mass. Rotate around it, translate with grace. Arms of stardust orbit through space. An abstract place, physically relevant though. Rigid bodies forces equate on the whole at the whole. Stillness and motion married to an immaterial thing. Forces neatly tallied into parabolic swings. Center of mass beyond bases of support. Displaced from plumb, the body is torqued. A tipped thin rod in rotational fall, angle accelerating, arced down one goes. Yet the body in balance from law it is known, as near a black hole, times perceived slowed. Nearing the white hole, such misses are small, more time to react, not spin out of control. Electric event horizon, white hole as black, current slowly rising up sacral center of mass. Cerebrospinal conductor, this glow stick done cracked. Void mind light reflecting, once seen ain't no going back. Thank you.
One of the things that's been really interesting to me, three of me, I see why you turned it now, is how different everybody approached writing the poems. And they're certainly very different depending on whether you write them in English first, or you write them in Sanskrit first, or you go back and forth, or if you do, as Alana did, you sort of try to go off of somebody else's poem, but then you're like, wait, actually it sort of works, but it doesn't. So my version of that is this. And I tend to write mine going back and forth. And so the Sanskrit writes the English and the English writes the Sanskrit, but I think my Sanskrit is better than my English. So I will show you that when I get back to mine. But we just have a couple more from people who cannot be here with us. But I do want to share their poems. One here from Haley, who can't be here. And this also sort of talking about this other idea of being inspired by a poem. She was inspired by Shel Silverstein. And so maybe I'll read the English first and then we will chant it. There indeed is a voice within, and it speaks of forgiveness every day. I know what is important to me. I know what is my sin. And I don't quite know Haley's process, but we definitely worked on this a bunch. And so there's definitely, we had to kind of come up with some other words. Garbe means like in the womb. Different, it sort of starts to change as you go back and forth. So we'll chant it on Haley's behalf. Patvani garbecha Satyaham sakshama vaddaha. Satyaham sakshama vaddaha. Janami mama bhavartam. Janami mama bhavartam. Janami mama dushkritam. Janami mama dushkritam. Repetition here is nice. Janami, I know what is my, according to me, what is my thing. You Haley. And we have one more. And I will give you mine in closing. By Shannon, who also can't be here, but pick up on Bryce's dancer. We have the beautiful ballerina, the Sundari Nrityagana. Dancing with a smile, the young woman, like the winds, Maruta, beloved, having seen her with her beauty. And one. Yes, this one was written, again, I don't quite know what came first. Well, I sort of know. I think this was a back and forth sort of process because it did change in the process. But yeah, let's dance it. Nrityanti sasmitam bala. Nrityanti sasmitam bala. Marutasya sakhiyata. Marutasya sakhiyata. Soundaryena naramuham. Soundaryena naramuham. Nayanti tambilokyahi. Nayanti tambilokyahi. And with our friend he, you now all know this word. Indeed. We've all learned some Sanskrit today. All right, so I'll just end with the ones that I wrote. And writing Sanskrit poems is kind of my favorite distraction project. Every time I have something that I should do, it's really nice to write a poem instead. I talked about this one. I realized I didn't read my English, and if you impermanence, time is both irrelevant and of the essence. The past is surely inside us. The future is merely a dream. Always enjoy. This is my Christmas poem. And my New Year's poem, I also seem to write poetry on, for holidays. This one was quite fun. I think my Sanskrit is better than my English, partly because I get to use the word budbuda, which means bubble. Such a good word. And I'm writing a paper on collective karma, and so I thought I'd write a poem also, which the Sanskrit for this is Eki Krita Karma, meaning like making karma one, basically. So we'll chant it and then I'll read it. Good day, Hina Jivama. Good day, Hina Jivama. Karma Hina Parasparam. Karma Hina Parasparam. Ayum Shivyati Shaktani. Ayum Shivyati Shaktani. Budya Karunaya Kuru. Budya Karunaya Kuru. Do not live in a bubble. Our action is indeed reciprocal. Parasparam, another good word. Lives are intertwined, act with wisdom and compassion within you. And not all poems, have to be about sort of big things. The first one I wrote, which I'm not sharing, was actually about Goldilocks. I also like fairy tales, but I will share one more and wrap it up for today. I just kind of want to bring us back to the birds because we started with the birds. We started with the birds being killed. I am bringing the birds back together. It sort of made me feel better about the whole thing, and we've excited the dogs. We've got 2 dogs in attendance here. To go with the mating swans. We'll chant it first, and then I'll read it in English. But this word viveka, it's probably my favorite Sanskrit word, and it means discernment. And the reason I have these swans here is it says that the swan or the hamsa has the ability to separate milk and water. If you've ever tried this, it's not very easy. In fact, we might say it's impossible. And yet the swan can do this, and this is what it takes to have true viveka. Vasaveham vivekam hi. Kutra tvasti pitatava. Kutra tvasti pitatava. Vrinushva yatnato yastam. Vrinushva yatnato yastam. Discernment hard. Kshiram binati hamsavat. Kshiram binati hamsavat. So yeah, like the swan, the hamsa separates and water are off from Shida, milk. I give birth to discernment, but where is your father? May you choose carefully, like a swan separates. This one I worked on the English too. Sometimes you get them both, sometimes you just get one. But, thank you. So we will leave it with discernment because I think we all need to give birth to discernment. And thank you to everybody for sharing their poems and to those who have come to hear the poems. No, nobody used AI, Anna. Somebody tried, but I vetoed. The AI turned out to not be very good at this. The person who tried sent me things that didn't work at all. The fun thing about making Sanskrit poetry is that there are all kinds of rules in play simultaneously, things like Sandhi and stuff. And so, yeah, it's really hard. I don't think it has the tools, thankfully. So, thankfully for my job.
Don't read AI in Sanskrit.
No, yes, please don't come to our Sanskrit Poetry Slam. We will have another one next year. You've got a year. So if you want to write a Sanskrit poem, you can bring one for next year. Those of you who have been studying Sanskrit, and if you've been inspired, come to our program and study Sanskrit, and you too can write Sanskrit poetry.